Hey everyone, this is Wayne, and before we jump into today's podcast, I want to remind you of our friends over at Summit Ministries. They're incredible ministry partners. Dr. Kathy just got back from an event that she did with them, and the work that God is doing through Summit is extraordinary. It's not ordinary. And what we're so excited about are some of the things that are going to be happening here in a couple weeks, in a month or two. We're going to be going to Summit summer sessions, and Dr. Kathy is going to teach teenagers and college age students some of the truths of how God's designed them. For 2 weeks, these students will go through some incredible lectures, some training, but also some great discipleship that'll happen as they rub shoulders with other Christians. It's one of the best summer experiences your kids can have. It's a 2-week deep dive into Christian worldview and what it looks like to live as Christians in the world today. We want to encourage you to go to Summit's website. Go to summit.org/celebrate kids. When you visit there and you find that you're going to sign up your kid, because we hope that's what happens, use the code CELEBRATE26. That code will get you a discount for the full summer session that you will have to pay for to have your kids go and experience this incredible opportunity. Again, summit.org/celebrate kids. Use the code CELEBRATE26 and get a discount from us here at Celebrate Kids. We're so thankful for our friends at Summit Ministries. Now let's turn to Dr. Kathy Cook.
I think we make individual decisions. We decide if it's a hill to die on. And in most cases, I don't think it is.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby. Not every light is gonna guide you.
So, Dr. Kathy, today in the Celebrate Kids podcast, in this daily segment, Facing the Dark, I want to bring up something that I read the other day from Helen Zoe Veit. She wrote something at the New York Times and really unpacked the reason why so many kids today are picky eaters. She highlights how this isn't just an American thing, but kids around the world are having foods marketed to them to make them happy. So things like bold and spicy flavors, they're not really explored because of their harshness. And instead, kids worldwide are really being exposed and marketed to with different foods that have sweetness and things that make them feel good. And I think every parent listening to this can maybe relate to, at some point in their parenting experience, the reality of what it looks like to have a kid who's a picky eater. I mean, we've gone to people's houses and we leave plates of half-eaten food at the dinner table, and we feel so embarrassed that our kids don't eat more. And some of it's because they haven't been exposed to the flavors inside of that lasagna or the way that that spaghetti was cooked. And as parents, I'm just going to put myself on the spot here and say, I feel so embarrassed that my kids don't eat all their food when they go to a friend's house, and the wife put all this time into making it. And now we're kind of like leaving with half the food on the plate and half the food in their bellies. And they made faces while they were eating it. Or you step into a restaurant and, you want your kids to eat. And then there's this dad, and I'm not going to say any dad's names here, but there's this dad that's talking to you right now who gets frustrated that we paid for food that our kids aren't eating. And we're kind of in this picky eating show about our kids. And so we leave the restaurant with my pockets empty and the food still on the plate. And I get so frustrated about that, Dr. Kathy. And I think that sometimes as parents, we kind of, I don't know, we look at our kids when they don't eat well and we think that they're selfish. Is picky eating just a sign of selfishness? Should parents really force our kids to eat the food on their plate, all of it? You have to try new foods. Is that a good thing? What does it show about our kids when they don't eat their food?
I haven't thought about this in a long time. I don't think it's selfishness. I think it's fear. I think it could be, I don't want to take a risk. Like, I like to eat. I could just picture, right? The 6-year-old and the 14-year-old. Like, I like to eat too much to take a risk, that I won't like it. And, they know what they like. I don't think it's selfishness. I wonder if they don't trust the adult. Like, if an adult who I don't know says to me, oh, you're really going to like it, why would I believe them? Do they even know me? Do they know that I have a limited palate? So, yeah, why would I follow along with that? So I don't think it's selfishness. I don't think it's intentional that they want the parent to look bad. It might be a few times, because they're mad at the dad and this is a way that they know they can make dad mad. But I think in most cases, it's a lack of experience.
Yeah, a lack of experience is kind of an interesting way to say it. The son that I have that works for us that's editing this podcast, his name is Braden, and he was an incredibly picky eater. Can I just call him out right now? He doesn't know
Sure.
this until he
He
edits
he
this,
can
but
edit this out. He can
yeah, he
decide
could,
not
but
to leave it
I don't
in
think
there.
he's going to. It's super funny because, this super hyper picky eater when he was younger, and the kid that I would get frustrated with and want him to eat more, he's now in a foreign country in Germany, and he's eating all kinds of foods that he would never think about eating. And it's kind of interesting because I think that food does say a lot about us. Food says a lot about our culture, it says a lot about our community, and it makes me wonder, like, how I even got to have this son who's traveling across the world to try new foods. And I don't really know what it was that changed in him. I don't think it was that
Mm,
we pushed him to have and experience new things. I don't think it was because I pressured him, and I did. And, I'm apologizing to him publicly right now for pressuring him. Looking back at this as a dad of 8 now, saying my first one I made all the mistakes on, right?
mm,
But I wonder, that should we kind of push our kids to explore new foods? Does that actually help them do it? If they don't explore that, does that say something about their character that we should, address maybe inside of their mealtime or outside of their mealtime? If a kid doesn't try something, does it show that they're uncultured and they don't care about
uh,
other people? Or is it just that they don't
mm.
like the flavor? What do you think there?
Oh, that's such a good question. If they haven't tasted it, then it can't be the flavor. Now, if they try it and they don't want any more, then it's texture or flavor. There's one particular food I will not eat because of texture. I just can't go there. And I know of other people who would say the same thing. And then there's some things I don't like because of flavor, and that's okay. But I'm an adult, and I've even said to people I might have a boring, menu in mind, but I'm not shamed for that. To God be the glory. I hang out with people who love me enough to not get upset. I don't think it's, let me back up and say that I don't like the idea of pushing kids to eat things that they don't like, just like I don't think you push a kid onto a roller coaster who is screaming he doesn't want to go. I don't think you push a kid to a sleepover when he doesn't want to go. And I'm not a fan of sleepovers, but I think you can request, you can suggest, you can be a good role model. And where your son is now, where Braden is in Germany now, he might not have a whole lot of choices. Like he might be fed this and he's like, okay, starve or eat it. I think I'll try it. I won't eat it overseas if I wouldn't eat it in America. That's just my rule. But that's my rule overseas because people have spent a lot of money and time to get me somewhere to teach, and I don't want to be sick and not able to do it. So again, we're allowed standards, I think. I do believe that you're right about the culture and having food. I remember being a third grader and our teacher took us on a pretend field trip to Hawaii. We pretended to be on the airplane. It was an amazing experience. I could go on and on. My mom was one of the room mothers, and at the end of this week, they changed our classroom into Hawaii, if you will, and we had a Hawaiian luau, and we had poi, and we all ate it because we're third graders and it's in school and we're kind of required to, and it wasn't terrible, but I haven't gone out of my way to ever eat it again, and I've been to Hawaii. So I don't know. I mean, I think experiences can be good. What if we kept a record? Wayne, I'm a fan of kind of keeping a written record. If I had one kid who was risk averse, across the board, risk averse, doesn't like roller coasters, doesn't like new experiences, has to be really taken by the hand and encouraged to try new people, new things. I'm not going to force food. But if I have another kid who's not risk averse, is more open to experimenting, is freer and more confident by DNA and by character, I might then really encourage that child to try something new at the restaurant. And maybe I'm not stupid and I start by ordering it myself and giving them a third of the portion rather than spending $7.50 and then having that wasted. So I think we know our kids. That would be ideal.
Yeah, I love that, Dr. Kathy. I want to dive into that just a little bit here as we kind of close out, because there is this understanding of knowing our kids. And sometimes, I really like sushi, and there's some of my kids that think that it's interesting to try it. And there's others of my kids that aren't really interested in being like their dad, so they don't want to try it. How do you encourage some of us as parents to guide our kids in their eating habits when some of our kids, they're not going to be us? They don't want to step
Amen.
into that world with us, right? They don't want to be like us. So how do you kind of walk through that with some of these kids that just are going to have different eating habits or different tastes?
What if we agreed that we have to decide what hill to die on, right? Like if you and your wife enjoy exotic foods, if your wife enjoys cooking national foods from other countries, okay, like you guys have a really strong connection to Norway, and maybe there's a Norwegian dish that Nancy enjoyed eating as a child and wants to make for the family. That's very different from forcing kids to go to a Japanese restaurant and eating something that is a beautiful vegetable in Japan that we don't want to eat over here. I mean, I don't know. I think we make individual decisions. We decide if it's a hill to die on. And in most cases, I don't think it is. Now, disrespect, like if it's character, if the child is not respecting you, if they're at grandma's house and grandma has made something and we have rules of respect and we trust grandma and we're going to honor her and we're going to take 3 bites, like that's different. So I think if I were to look at it from a character standpoint, then I think that's fair. Do we give our kids choices of other things? What if a kid tries something and really doesn't like it? Is that okay with you? Or would you assume they're lying to get out of it? Is that okay? These are decisions. I'll say it's valuable for the husband and wife, the parents, to be on the same page where the mom and the dad both back off or the mom and the dad both gently require. I think to be consistent there would be valuable. Yeah, this is interesting to think about.
As Dr. Kathy and I talked today, it reminded me of a passage that comes out of Numbers chapter 11, and I'll begin reading at verse 4. The rabble with them began to crave food, and again the Israelites started wailing and said, "If we only had meat to eat. We remember the fish that we ate in Egypt at no cost, also the cucumbers and the melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. But now we have lost our appetite. We will never see anything but this manna." After God delivers Israel from slavery, they're in Egypt. And this grumbling that happens in this passage in Numbers really is a grumbling that can be heard around my kitchen table sometimes. Israel grumbles in the wilderness, and God provides manna, something that's daily, it's sufficient, it's sustaining, and it's good for them. Food in the ancient world was actually more about survival than it was about flavor, taste. Complaining about food was serious because it implied this distrust in God's provision. That's something that God pulls out inside of Scripture for us to understand. Israel's complaint wasn't just about nutrition, it was actually about familiarity and control. They preferred predictable tastes that happened in Egypt. Even if Egypt meant bondage, they wanted to go back to something that brought them pleasure. Children often prefer what is known and what is comforting. That's developmentally normal. And new flavors can feel threatening, especially to their nervous system that's really wired for safety. As we build a security for our kids, I think it gives them a place to launch out into and to know that if they try this, they can still get sustained from other food. They need to have a sense of security. They need to have an understanding of security. Picky eating is rarely selfish and rebellion at its root for kids. It's often a desire for control or sensory sensitivity preferences, or even sometimes an anxiety about the unfamiliar. Before labeling our kids' eating habits as character failure, we might want to consider what the preference is protecting. Are they looking for something that makes them feel secure right now because they had a hard day? Can we help them understand that food isn't their security, but God is? And we can be that conduit to God by helping them understand that this is okay to try something new and we can still have a stable base of security. I think that's what Scripture really does. It really shows us that comfort shouldn't rule our appetite forever, but growth requires gentle expansion from a place of security. And I think as parents, we can give our kids that, partly because God is somebody who gives us that. And we see that in Numbers, and we see it other places in Scripture, that the more that we rely on God rather than the taste or the flavor of a season, that actually allows us to launch out and to be people who live in freedom and joy that expands beyond the taste or the flavor or the delight of some season that really might be bitter. And I think giving our kids that little picture of what that looks like to try something new and to develop their expansive taste habits to something that can be really, delighting to them later on in life. I think that doing those things can be a light that shines and cuts through the darkness that they might be experiencing today. I want to thank you for listening to the Celebrate Kids podcast, to this daily segment, Facing the Dark. On behalf of Dr. Kathy Cook, my name is Wayne Stender. Glad you joined us today, and we're looking forward to seeing you here again tomorrow.